Buying the wrong car in 2026 could quietly cost you over $3,700. And in one very common situation, the hybrid everyone recommends is actually the worst financial decision you can make. Not because hybrids don't save money, but because most buyers misunderstand when that savings actually shows up, and when it doesn't show up at all. And with gas now averaging around $3.70 per gallon, and already pushing past $4.30 in some months, this isn't a small decision anymore. It's something that affects your budget every single week.
So the real question isn't hybrid or gas. It's this: when does a hybrid actually save you money, and when does it quietly lose you money instead? Stay with me, because the answer changes based on one factor most buyers completely ignore.
By the end of this, you'll know exactly when hybrids start making financial sense, the mileage point where the math flips, which type of vehicle makes hybrids a no-brainer, and the one situation where a gas car is still the smarter move. This is based on real US pricing, mileage, and ownership data across 3 different segments. And once you see the pattern, your decision becomes much clearer. 2 years ago, this decision was easier. Today, it's not, because 3 things changed at the same time, and most buyers are still making decisions based on outdated assumptions. First, fuel prices. Gas averaged about $3.10 per gallon in 2025. The 2026 projection is closer to $3.70, with spikes already trending higher. That's nearly a 20% increase in just 1 year. What that means for you is simple. Every extra gallon your vehicle burns now costs you significantly more than it did last year. And over thousands of miles, that difference adds up quickly.
Second, incentives. The federal tax credits that used to offset hybrid costs are no longer available for most standard hybrids after late 2025. That means you're paying full price now. No rebate, no cushion. So this decision is no longer influenced by incentives. It's purely about the numbers: purchase price, fuel savings, depreciation, and how long you plan to keep the vehicle. And third, the market itself. Hybrids are holding value better than the average vehicle. And when gas prices rise, demand for used hybrids increases, which supports resale values. So this is no longer just about fuel savings. It's about total ownership cost.
Let's start with a compact sedan, because this is where most people get surprised. Take the Corolla. The gas version typically lands around $24,100. The hybrid version comes in closer to $25,900. That's about an $1,800 premium to go hybrid. At first glance, it looks like an easy decision. The gas Corolla averages about 35 miles per gallon. The hybrid jumps to around 50. Over 5 years, that difference saves roughly $2,300 in fuel. That sounds like a clear win. But here's where the math changes.
That $2,300 in fuel savings has to offset the higher purchase price, slightly higher insurance, and higher dollar depreciation. When you account for all of that, the hybrid only ends up ahead by about $800 over 5 years. That's roughly $13 per month. So yes, the hybrid wins, but barely. And that's where most buyers make their first mistake. They assume any savings means it's worth it. But that $800 spread only matters if you're actually driving enough to capture it. If you're driving less than 10,000 miles per year, or you plan to sell the car early, that savings may never fully materialize. In that case, the gas version is still the more rational financial choice.
Now let's move up to a compact SUV, because this is where things start to shift, but not in the way most people expect. Take the CR-V. The gas version comes in around $34,100. The hybrid is closer to $36,900. That's a $2,800 premium. Fuel economy improves from about 30 miles per gallon to 40. Over 5 years, that still translates to roughly $2,300 in fuel savings. But again, the higher upfront cost works against you. Once you factor in depreciation and maintenance differences,
the hybrid still only comes out ahead by around $800 over 5 years. Same result as the Corolla.
Which is surprising because the MPG gap is bigger. So what's going on? The extra price you paid to get that efficiency is canceling out most of your fuel savings. And this is where buyers get misled. They focus on MPG, but ignore the cost required to achieve that MPG. Higher efficiency only helps you financially if the price premium is reasonable.
Now, this is the point where everything changes. Because once you move into larger vehicles, the math completely flips. Take the Highlander. The gas version sits around $46,500. The hybrid comes in at about $48,200. That's only a $1,700 difference, smaller than both the Corolla and the CR-V. But the fuel difference is much larger. The gas version averages about 24 miles per gallon. The hybrid jumps to around 35. That's a significant gap in a vehicle that consumes much more fuel overall. And here's the key moment. In this case, the hybrid doesn't just win on fuel, it also holds its value better, which means it's already ahead before you even factor in gas savings. Now add fuel into the equation, and over 5 years, the hybrid comes out ahead by about $3,700. That's no longer a marginal difference. That's a clear financial advantage. And if gas prices continue to rise, that advantage increases quickly. So here's the pattern. In smaller vehicles, the hybrid advantage is real, but limited. In larger, less efficient vehicles, the hybrid advantage becomes significant. And this is where the decision becomes much easier. Now let's talk about what actually impacts your wallet on a day-to-day basis. Fuel is the biggest factor. At around 15,000 miles per year, even small differences in efficiency turn into thousands of dollars over time. And the higher gas prices go, the more that advantage shifts toward hybrids. Upfront costs and monthly payments are slightly higher for hybrids, but those differences are small compared to long-term fuel savings. Insurance differences exist, but again, they're not the deciding factor. The biggest variable is always fuel.
Now, let's address the concern most buyers still have: hybrid batteries. They rarely fail within the first 5 to 10 years, but when they do, the cost can range from $2,000 to $8,000. That's not a common event, but it's not impossible either. And that's the kind of risk that can wipe out years of savings in one repair. So it needs to be part of your decision. Not ignored, but not exaggerated either. Here's the reality in 2026. If you're buying a midsize SUV, the hybrid is the clear financial choice. The numbers are already in its favor, and rising gas prices only strengthen that position. If you're buying a compact car or compact SUV, the hybrid still wins, but only under the right conditions. You need to be driving enough miles, and you need to avoid overpaying for the hybrid premium. If either of those doesn't apply, the gas version can still be the smarter financial decision.
And here's the part most buyers completely miss. This isn't about choosing hybrid or gas. It's about choosing based on how you actually use your car. Because the wrong decision doesn't feel like a mistake right away. It shows up slowly, in fuel costs, resale value, and long-term ownership expenses. And by the time you realize it, the money is already gone. So here's what I want to know. What does your driving actually look like? Are you putting on serious miles every year, or barely using your car at all? Because that one detail is what determines this entire equation. Drop that in the comments. Next week, I'm breaking down plug-in hybrids, where incentives and charging completely change the math. Subscribe so that reaches you before you make a decision.